Let's say you are a software engineer and you just joined a new team. In a typical scenario, you have a day or two to set up the development environment and hopefully spend some time to get familiar with the code base. But in reality, the problem is that when you open the project, there are hundreds of files and you don't know where to start. At the same time, your teammates are just too busy to walk you through it. So this is actually a very common onboarding challenge every developer faces when joining a new team or starting on a new project. In the past, you either got lucky and had someone to walk you through the code, or you have to figure it out on your own. Both ways cost a lot of time, your team's time or your time. But nowadays, with AI, there's actually a much faster way to get up to speed. In this video, I will walk you through the workflow that I use to onboard any new projects. In this video, we are going to cover a 4-step approach: getting your app warning, setting up your AI context file, understanding the code base, and the last one is creating your personal reference document. Okay, let's get started with step 1, getting the app warning. In this video, I'm going to use a simple web application from a public repository to demonstrate the process. You can follow along if you would like to, and you can use any other repository because the workflow should work the same on any other project. So we have a React front end here, and then the backend here as well. But that's the theory. In practice, you will usually run into a few issues along the way. For example, the database connection string in the document may be outdated, so you won't be able to connect to the database, or the certificate they provide to you has already been expired. All sorts of small weird problems like that. When you hit into a situation like that, especially when you're new to the team, it could take you hours to figure that out. So my recommendation is just to schedule a quick meeting with a teammate to walk you through their setup together. Because a lot of their knowledge, undocumented steps, actually lives in people's head, not in the document. And one meeting can save you a number of hours. Okay, let me start the app before we jump to the next step. Now the backend is running. We also need to start the front end as well. Let's see how we can start the app. Install, start. Okay, that's easy. Okay, so now we have the app up and running. So in order to get this project to work, I have to make a couple of changes. It is just because this is a public repository and it has been lack of maintenance for a while. So for your project, if you're working on the company's repository, you shouldn't have to do that. But anyway, now the app is running. Let's move on to the next step. So the next step is to set up your AI context file. So by that, we will generate a code empty file. To do that, you can run a /init command. And what the command does is that it allows Code to explore your code base. It looks through everything in your project. For example, the project structure, key entry points for the API, or any team convention, whatever important will be written into the codemd file, and that file becomes code's memory. Think of it as a way for code to onboard itself to this project. And because code is looking through everything in your project, it could take a while for it to generate a file. So you can see that it's reading a lot of different files. So let's wait. Okay, now the codemd has been generated. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so it tells us what is this project about. It is a backend API project for a blocking platform. What commands can we use? How can we run a unit test file? The architecture of this project. And also, this is nice. This is the request flow from controller to service level, and then mapper back to the controller response. And some of the convention as well. This looks really nice. So in addition to the codemd file we just generate for the backend project, we also need to do that for the front-end project. And the reason is that different projects has different contexts. So code needs to learn them separately. And this is especially true when you are working with larger repository. For example, for some project, you might have a backend project, a front-end project, or infrastructure project, and also another project might be common library project. So it's important that you have codemd on each of these projects so that the AI can has better context to work with. The next step is get code to generate a project summary for you, but don't mix it up with codemd we just talked about. Codemd is to help code navigate your code base efficiently. But for you, the project summary is a more human readable explanation on how the app works, so you can actually learn from it. So think of it this way. Instead of going into the code and trying to piece everything together yourself, you let code do it and generate a document for you. A document that covers what a new developer needs to know. Okay, let's generate a project summary. So the prompt that I'm using right now is the prompt that I would use if I were drop into any existing project. It basically asks code to cover the most important part of knowing an application. For example, what does this app actually do? How is the code base structure? I also like code to draw a high-level architecture diagram for me so I can start to build up mental map about this app. And also what are the tech stacks used? How does the data flow through the system? For example, how does it go from user request to the backend to the server and then back to the user? And also what are the key dependency and integration points? So these are all important to know as a starting point to learn about a system. And at the end, I also tell code to save the response to a project file, project summary file. This is important because this document will be your reference for the first few weeks when you work with this project, and you don't want to use the prompt to keep generate keep asking code to generate the same response again and again. So it's better to save it to a file. And the other benefits is that having it in a file so that you can keep asking code to refine it as you learn more about the project. All right, the project summary is now ready. Let's take a look. In the first section, it tells us what the app actually does. So basically, this is a backend API project for a blocking platform. And for core feature, it has the feature that you would expect for a blocking platform. For example, create, read, update, or delete blog posts. You can also add or delete comment. It has other common feature as well. So without looking at a single line of code, you can already tell what this application is built for and what problem it solves. Now the project summary has been generated. Let's take a look. In section 1, what does this app actually do? So it tells us this is a backend API project for something called another block. It is for a blocking platform. Okay. For the core user-facing feature, we have authentication, article. In article, we can create, update, delete blog posts. Okay, that makes sense. We have with comment. You can favorite and favorite articles. So this looks like a very typical blocking platform. Now we have a good idea on from the business perspective what does this app actually do. Let's move on to something more technical. This is how the code base is structured. Looks pretty nice. And what are the technology we use in this project? So if you want to dig into something more specific, you can just ask code to explain it further. But don't ask code to just explain the term. What I usually do is let code to explain to me how this technology is used in this project and why do we need this in our project. So you get more context on the project while learning the technology. Next part is how data flow through the system. I really like this part because it really shows you the complete picture on how the app works under the hood. For example, if a user want to create a blog post, it goes through the main.ts. In there, we do a request body parsing and go through the authentication, the controller layer, the business layer, and the database operation, and then we return this response to the client. So once you understand this pattern, usually the application use the same pattern to process other requests as well. So it really helps to understand and troubleshoot later on. And also the key dependency. Lastly is the high-level architecture diagram. Looks really nice. Next section tells us how is the code base structure. So basically, this is a monorepo. Everything is within a single repository. And looking into the code, seems like we have 4 domains. For each domain, there is a corresponding controller layer, surface layer, and DB layer. And this is important because once you know how the code is structured, the whole code base become so much easier to navigate. Next, we have the technology used in this project, and then how data flows through the system. I find this section to be particularly useful because it gives you a detailed walkthrough on the entire request flow. For example, if a client wants to create a new article, it tells you what happened from when the client sends a request, how it moves through different layers, and finally reach the database and then back to the client. So this is the stuff that usually take a senior engineer an hour to walk you through. But now with AI, you can just generate and learn it yourself. Next, we have a key dependency in the integration point section, and then a high-level architecture diagram, which shows you how each component is connected. And I believe this is the end of the document. Yep. So look how much information you can actually generate with a single prompt with AI. And you don't need to waste your teammates' time on the build basic. You can just get it all from yourself. And the benefits is that you can come to them with more specific question rather than ask them to explain the whole system to you. So once you have this mental map of the system, you start to know how each pieces fits together. From there, you can actually dig into more specific part that you are assigned to work on. For example, if you're assigned to work on something related to user authentication, you can start to look into the code related to that part and ask AI to explain it more to you. And that's how you get productive quickly. Before we wrap up, I just want to mention that all the documentation file, the code MD, and also the project summary we generated during the process, they both need to be updated over time. And I find that keeping your documentation update is one of the ways to consistently get good results from code. So when it is a time that you need to update the document, you don't have to manually update it. Just use a prompt to let the AI do it for you, and you're done. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching.